If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Lions of the Emperor 10 Tips and Tricks Part 2. This is 10 more tips and tricks for the Adeptus Custodes Lions of the Emperor detachment. I feel we could probably make a part 3. There's a lot of potential in Lions. A very fun detachment with a higher skill ceiling than some of our other detachments. For 10 tips, we have Martial Kata and Against All Odds, Superior Creation in Attached Units, Custodian Wardens or Custodian Guard, Peerless Warrior Tips, Caladius Grav-Tank and Lions of the Emperor, Inquisitor Draxus and our detachment rule Against All Odds, Sweeping Advance and Gilded Champion, Lions of the Emperor deployment, Unleash the Lions and new units. Last is Trajann Valoris is great in Lions of the Emperor. We will start with our army rule Martial Kata and Against All Odds the Lions of the Emperor detachment rule. The Lions of the Emperor makes deciding which kata to use on a unit much easier. On the channel, we like to use Sustain Hits 1 anytime we'll be wounding on a 4+. If you don't have any wound rerolls on your unit, depending on the situation, lethals could be a better choice. When the unit has access to reroll wounds, Sustain Hits 1 gets even stronger. Now we will include the +1 to hit and wound from Against All Odds. We will be wounding Toughness 8 to Toughness 13 units on a 4+. It is not a 100% sure thing. Sustain Hits 1, our Dakatari stance, and Lions is usually the best choice, as long as we're getting that buff from the detachment rule, the +1 to hit and +1 to wound. Next up is Superior Creation Tips and Tricks. This is a quick but handy tip for this enhancement. If a character with this enhancement is sniped out of its unit with a precision weapon, on a 2+, this character returns to its unit at full wounds remaining. That's right, returns to the unit. And let's look at some rules to back up that claim. These can be found in the core rules commentary that can be downloaded on the Warhammer community website. And this is under returning models to a unit. And this is also why we see a lot of Blade Champions in competitive lists with the Superior Creation enhancement. Returning models to a unit. Some rules resurrect or return models to their unit. Such models are added to their units. If a leader model is destroyed and subsequently returned to the battlefield, and the bodyguard unit they were attached to is still on the battlefield, they must be returned to that unit to form an attached unit once more. Otherwise, if that bodyguard unit is destroyed, they are returned as a separate unit. I will have this video broken up into chapters, so if you're ever having a game and someone argues against this, you can bring this video up or even show them exactly in the rules where we can use Superior Creation to bring back a Custodes character to its attached unit. Next up is Custodian Wardens or Custodian Guard. This was always an easy question to answer since we had our 10th edition codex was released. Wardens, Wardens, Wardens. They were the best unit we had and still the best unit we have for survivability. The Wardens and Custodian Guard are best equipped with a Guardian Spear. We can put a Vexilla in the Wardens unit without dropping a spear. Most Custodian Guard units do drop one spear for a Vexilla, Shield, and Misericordia. Let's take a look at the Custodian Guard and the Wardens abilities. For the Wardens, we have Resolute Will. While a character is leading this unit, each time an attack targets this unit, if the strength of that attack is greater than the toughness of this unit, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Then we have Living Fortress. Once per battle at the start of any phase, you can use this ability. If it does, until the end of the phase, models in that unit have the 4+ Funeral Pain ability. For the Custodian Guard abilities, we have Stand Vigil. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. While this unit is within range of an objective marker you control, you can reroll the wound roll instead. Then we have Sentinel Storm. Once per battle in your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, it can shoot again. Once per game, we can double shoot with the Custodian Guard. We can see why the Wardens have been so popular. -1 to the wound with a 4+ Funeral Pain can be really hard to remove from the table. The Custodian Guard, however, have seen a resurgence in Lions of the Emperor, all because of the detachment rule. Against All Odds gives a Custodes unit +1 to hit and +1 to the wound in the shooting or melee. This opens up the Custodian Guard to be a shooting unit and a melee unit. The reroll wounds of 1 or the wound roll if we're on objective we control works on any of our attacks, that means shooting or melee. 2 shots from the spear, AP 1, damage 2 becomes way better with +1 to the wound. Reroll wounds with a once per game, shoot twice. Throw in Draxus, Trajann, or Inquisitor to the unit to make the shooting even better. I have a recent video in our What's Winning Right Now playlist, has a list with 3 Custodian Guard units with 0 Wardens that has recently won a GT. Dust those Custodian Guard off the shelf. When we use Lines of the Emperor, the question of Wardens or Guard has shifted from take Wardens every single time to you can use either. I absolutely love to see that. More unit variety is good for the Adeptus Custodes. Peerless Warrior Tips and Tricks. This stratagem can either be quite useless in a game or game-changing. Quite the difference in power depending on the enemy list. Against a list that depends on characters to buff its units, such as Necrons, Sisters of Battle, or even Space Marines, we can use Peerless Warrior to rip those characters out of their attached units. I have used this stratagem to cripple Necrons. 3 model Venator units are fantastic for that job. Rapid ingress for 0 CP, charge the enemy character unit in our turn, use Peerless Warrior to kill that enemy character. 15 attacks, hitting on a 2+, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2 with lance, and sustain hits or lethal hits. That character is most likely dead. Use this stratagem to your advantage when you're playing against a list that really depends on their characters to make their list work. The core stratagem Epic Challenge is nice since your character gets to try to snipe out another character. Peerless Warrior gives your entire unit the precision ability on their melee weapons. That enemy character is most likely dead. Next is Caladius Grav-Tanks and the Lions of the Emperor detachment. The detachment rule does not work on vehicles, so why take a Grav-Tank? All infantry Lions lists can work and have won tournaments. The Grav-Tank may not get as much detachment support. As we've seen for all of 10th edition, the Caladius Grav-Tank datasheet is so good, detachment support is just some extra bonus. The Twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon is the weapon of choice, lethal hits into monster or vehicle units. 4 shots, hitting on a 2+, strength 12, AP 3, damage D6 plus 2 with twin linked. These tanks give us reliable anti-tank shooting. Custodes players like to have 2 of these in a Lines of the Emperor list. I've seen them used with 1, but 2 make some really reliable firepower. Plant these in our deployment to screen out enemy reserves. Do not deploy these in the shooting lanes. We want to use these as a counter shooting unit. Wait for the enemy to move into the shooting lanes, then bring these tanks out to counter shoot. They can be pushed up the board in the later turns to hold objectives or even do a secondary action or 2. Custodes units have to be able to do multiple things in a game. Even if it is screening and shooting, that will be less units we have to use and take to screen out our deployment if we do have tanks in our backlines shooting down the board. Next up is one of the Custodes' favorite units, Inquisitor Draxus and the Lines of the Emperor. Draxus with the Custodian Guard has been one of our top unit choices for all of 10th edition. What makes this combination so good is what the Custodian Guard do for Draxus. Draxus attached to the Custodian Guard become 1 unit. This means the reroll wounds of 1 or reroll the wound roll if on objective we control, and the once per game double shoot from the Custodian Guard work on Draxus. Same for our army rule Martial Kata, it targets the unit with Martial Kata. The Draxus and Custodian Guard unit has the Martial Kata ability, so Draxus does get some sustain hits 1 or lethal hits. I know it may seem weird because Draxus herself doesn't have the ability, but the Custodian Guard have the ability, and when you attach Draxus to the unit, the Custodian Guard give that whole unit Martial Kata. And the Martial Kata ability, if you read it, it only targets the unit that has Martial Kata. It's not the model like the Shield Host Detachment rule, where it targets the model as long as your model has Martial Kata. You can get crits on 5 or AP 1. For Army rule, it only targets the unit with Martial Kata. The Detachment rule, against all odds, also targets a Custodes unit. Draxus will get the +1 to hit and +1 to wound roll. Draxus is already a threat to infantry on the table when she hits on a 3+, now hitting on a 2+, she becomes much more reliable. 4 attacks, hitting on a 2+, anti-infantry 4, damage 2 with devastating wounds. Then we include her Psychic Tempest attack and the Custodian Guard. Draxus and the Custodian Guard will be hitting on a 2+, with reroll wounds of 1. Stand this unit on an objective to reroll the wound roll. She becomes very deadly to infantry. The unit can take out a Rhino or other low toughness vehicle monster units in 1 shooting phase, using the Shoot Twice ability once per game, combined with the reroll wounds if on objective we control. a very strong unit in the lines of the Emperor detachment. It also gives us another reason to dust off those Custodian Guard units. Then we have Sweeping Advance and Gilded Champion. I have become a believer. I read all your comments saying just how good the Shield Captain on Donegal Jetbike can be in the lines of the Emperor. I have been using one in every one of my infantry-based lines list, even some of my Grav-Tank lists too. We received a buff in December 2024, taking the Shield Captain up to toughness 7, 8 wounds with some much better guns. The Shield Captain on Donegal's ability, Sweeping Advance, has always been one of the best movement abilities in the game. Let's take a look to refresh our brain on the Sweeping Advance. Sweeping Advance, once per battle at the end of the fight phase. If this model has fought this phase, if it is within engagement range of one or more enemy units, it can make a fallback move. Or if it is not within engagement range of one or more enemy units, it can make a normal move. Okay, so we have our Sweeping Advance. Why is it so good in Lions? It's the fact that we can use it twice per game with the Gilded Champion stratagem. It opens up some more movement options in a game. I really like the Shield Captain attached to 2 Virtus Praetors. These become a chaff light infantry clearing machine. Move out, shoot a unit to death, and then charge another one, only to use Sweeping Advance and Gilded Champion to move back into some line of sight cover to do it all over again. It takes a few games to get used to these bikes and the hang of Sweeping Advance. It is well worth it. I encourage you to try one of these units in the lines of the Emperor. Lines of the Emperor deployment. Deployment is quite a bit different than some of our other detachments. We want to deploy with future turns in mind. What I mean by that is you want your units in your lines list taking advantage of the detachment rule. Custodian shooting becomes much better with +1 to the wound. Draxus with the Custodian Guard come to mind, +1 to hit and +1 to the wound from against all odds. If we deploy our army all bunched together with no real plan of who is going where turn 1, this will hurt your lines list. We want to be able to move outside of 6 inches from friendly units as soon as possible. Our Custodian Guard can re-roll wounds, shoot twice once per game. Their weapons are only Strength 4, AP 1, Damage 2. +1 to the wound roll makes a noticeable difference in their shooting. Take your time when you deploy. Plan out your turn 1 movement. Get the detachment rule going as soon as we can. Unleash the Lions and Golden Light. Unleash the Lions with Golden Light seems to be a hot topic. Can we use Golden Light on units from Unleash the Lions if Golden Light has not been used by the target of this stratagem? Yes we can. Can we use it if the target has already used from Golden Light? The answer to that is maybe, and this is a hard one. Returning units or split units do not regain abilities that have been used. It has to be a new unit, and now this is where it gets interesting. I look through the core rules, rules commentary, and tournament companion. Unless I missed something, this is a bit of a gray area. Unleash the Lions seems to be obviously splitting the Terminator units into smaller 1-model units, which would mean we would not be able to use Golden Light if it was used on that previous Terminator unit. It is interesting that Unleash the Lions does state these new units. They could have just written these units. It could be argued that yes indeed these are new units and we could in fact double up on Golden Light. I myself play that I can't use it twice. My reasoning is I don't want to get used to it being this way only for it to change. I will wait until we have more of a clear yes or no answer. Our last tips and tricks is Trajann Valoris and the lines of the Emperor. The Captain General, Trey himself, finally is being used more in competitive lists. I have always liked to use him in casual game or any of the new detachments to hopefully find a place for him in a list. The Lines of the Emperor is that home for him. Gilded Champions for 1 CP to use Moment Shackle twice is amazing. He can either have 12 attacks or a 2+ invulnerable for his model only. The 12 attacks at Strength 10, AP 2, Damage 3 can really lay on the pain. Throw on +1 to wound from the detachment rule, he becomes very scary. He can fight on death with a 2+ for 1 CP. Moment Shackle has to be used at the start of the fight phase. If Trey is low on wounds, use Moment Shackle for the 12 attacks, then use to fight to the last for 1 CP for fight on death to take out as many enemy units and models as he can with him to the afterlife. There is a reason he is being used in so many competitive lists. Unlike other detachments, Trajann is a threat in our fight phase and the opponent's fight phase. Unless you shoot him to death, something is taking 12 Watchers axe chops to the face. That's all 10 tips and tricks for this video. Let's move on to some final thoughts. I hope some of these tips and tricks have been helpful for those trying out the Lines of the Emperor detachment. There are plenty of more tips and tricks for a part 3. What I like most about the Lines of the Emperor is all the different ways we can build a strong list. We can build a list with Wardens or without, with Grav-Tanks or without. Psychona units feel they can actually hurt things in this detachment since they do get the +1 to hit and +1 to the wound roll as well. Lines of the Emperor has become my favorite detachment. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Channel members gain early access to videos and an invite to the channel Discord. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.